They say that death and taxes are inevitable, but relationships are the one thing you have the moment you're conceived. The body will reveal in priority order what the being needs to vibrate of the frequency of what it wants to attract. Maybe it's not everybody else that needs to change. Maybe it's the way we relate with ourselves and what we allow to affect us and how we perceive things that needs to change.
In this episode, we're diving into the patterns that shape how we love, communicate, and show up in our relationships. We explore why so many of us are great at giving, yet struggle to receive, and how that quietly impacts us. It's one of those conversations that gets under your skin in the best possible way, inviting you to pause and really look at how you're showing up. There's honesty, reflection, and some powerful shifts here, moving from trying to change others to turning inward and understanding yourself. It's the kind of episode that might just change the way you see yourself and the people around you.
The universe doesn't give you what you want. The universe reflects back to you who you are.
Welcome back to another episode of Midlife Unfiltered. Today's guest is someone who has spent over 2 decades helping people understand themselves and each other a little better. Alfina Lofaro is a Queensland-raised kinesiologist, transformational coach, and now author whose Italian roots and farm-grown upbringing shaped a deep belief in connection, authenticity, and living fully. For those unfamiliar with kinesiology, it's a practice that explores how the body holds stress, emotion, and old patterns. And Alfina weaves that mind-body wisdom together with coaching to help people transform the way they relate to others and themselves. In short, she helps us unpack the unconscious patterns that shape how we love, argue, and connect. Her debut book, Love Deliberately: How to Be Less Shit at Relationships, has just earned her an award in the US. But what makes her work so compelling isn't that it's just professional expertise, it's deeply personal. She's not speaking from a distance, she's sharing what she lived. So welcome, Alfina.
Hello, and hello to everyone listening.
Before we deep dive into your work, I just want to start with something really human. So when we talked, you mentioned that on a recent trip that you learnt more about love and relationships. So what is it that stayed with you most from that experience?
Such a good question, isn't it? So I recently I went to America to receive my award. And on the way, I went to a wedding in Auckland. Before I left, a friend of mine who I just met on an online course in a forum with just women, and she knew I was going to knew I was going to New Zealand and then off to America. And she said, Alfina, cancel your hotel, come and stay with me. Never met her face to face in my life, only been in a program with her for 16 weeks. And she invited me into her home. And when I got there, she made celery juice every morning and heavy metal detox smoothies, and she had a room for me. She did my hair to go to the wedding. And she said the kindest thing. She said, you need somewhere to be where you're going to be taken care of before you go off to America and do this big thing, because it's going to take a lot for you to do it. And she knew that walking a red carpet, doing all of that stuff is so not the farm girl that I was raised as. And so she knew I needed a soft place to land before I went. And she gave me this gift, and I didn't know I needed it. I did not know I needed this gift. And what was remarkable was that what I learnt about myself is I'm rubbish at receiving. I'm so good at giving, but rubbish at receiving. And women, the yin energy, as we talk about a lot in kinesiology, is receiving. And I'm not great at that. So I learnt about myself that I am capable of it, and that there are people out there in the world that want to give you that. What you give to others, they want to give to you. And the gifts just kept coming because my friend included me in the wedding, in her family. It was just the most remarkable 5 days of my life before I went to America and did this thing that was so foreign, but I felt so loved, so supported. And I think the bigger point that I learnt here is women are so powerful when we connect and when we support each other, and we can really give each other so much if we get out of our own way.
I 100% agree with that. I think it's really interesting when we tune into the fact that, because we do tend to be givers, that in order to give, someone has to receive. And to balance things out, that means we have to be able to receive. And I love so much that your friend could see something for you that you needed that you didn't even know. That's pretty powerful, right?
Yes, and I think the even more powerful thing is that I'd never met her face to face. She had like she known me online. We would share 5 minutes a week for 16 weeks of our life, and that's it. Like, so yes, we made felt familiar to each other, but she had never met me face to face, and yet knew essentially what I needed without being told. Yeah, it was incredible.
Well, how's that for some intuition, hey?
That's right.
I think it's so beautiful that your friend in New Zealand was able to give you this gift, and particularly before you were going over to do something that was a lot out of your comfort zone. But I want to come back to that trip in the US a little bit later. So I guess let's start with you've spent 25 years as a coach and an educator. How has your understanding of relationships evolved over that time?
Wow, that's a great question because a lot. What I have held true from the very beginning is that we're not taught anywhere specifically anymore how to relate. And so it is something that you need to do deliberately. You need to learn how to do relationships deliberately. And what I have come to understand is that we do it from environment, experiment, or education, usually in crisis. If you had a great environment growing up, awesome. If yours had some things in it that weren't great for relationships, then those patterns will play out later on in life. There's always the experiments of the friends, and I've heard some great ones. I'm sure you have too. So I remember some of the advice when I was out looking for the one, out dating,
Hmm.
all the common advice. So I call it experiments that people run. So you've got to stop looking. Just you stop looking, and then when you stop looking, the right one comes. Or Alfina, this is a really good friend of mine. She goes, "Your husband wants the GPS sat nav in the car." This is about 2016, 2015, 2016. Let him have it. Boys like gadgets. And you know what? You'll get something else in return. And I was like, that's not, is that how marriage works? I'm not sure how. So these are all experiments I picked up along the way from people. And I used to look at people and go, oh, they all know. They all know what they're doing. Everyone knows what's going on in relationships but me. But where I missed that class, where was it that I missed that class? Over time, what I realize is everyone's making it up.
It's one of my favorite things. I say, that's okay. I'm just MSUing it. And people go, what? I'm making stuff up. So if someone sat down with you and said, I just want better relationships, where would you actually start with them?
The place that I start now is not where I would have started a few years ago. So the place where I start now is always with the individual's relationship with himself
Mm-hmm.
and how they show up and how they do relationships. And it's the basic building blocks of trust, forgiveness, compassion. How are they communicating? What are their values and beliefs? That's one of the first places I start in the building blocks. Because often when people show up wanting to work on relationships, they want everybody else to change to fit around their values and beliefs around the world. Around them. And they're usually looking for, how do I get them to change so I can be happy? And so what I like to start with is do you know who you are and how you're showing up? Because maybe it's not everybody else that needs to change. Maybe it's the way we relate with ourselves and what we allow to affect us and how we perceive things that needs to change. And with the right information and education, I always say people, they just find it easier. They get a little bit better each day. And then before you know it, relating with people's a lot easier.
Yeah, 100%. I was talking with a coach the other day, and they said to me, I've got this great program. I've got the answer. I've got the solution, but my clients just won't follow through with it. I was like, oh, that's interesting. She's going, how do I get them to follow through? I said, well, you might want to look in the mirror and see where in your life you're not following through. And she kind of went, oh, hang on, where's your commitment levels in your life? And it was so interesting just to watch that process of her sort of recognizing, oh, there's something within me here, rather than that thing that you're talking about, how do I make other people change? It's like, well, you don't. So I know that you talk about helping people see who they are in relationships. What does that really mean in practice?
So what that really means is, if depends if they use coaching or kinesiology. Kinesiology, we're going to go deeper and deeper, but what that means is that we'll look at the different ingredients of what makes a healthy relationship. So as I said before, trust, forgiveness, good communication, the ability to have intimacy or closeness is what I call it. If we have compassion for ourselves and others, what that means is we look at those aspects and ingredients and we get real with ourselves and go, okay, do I trust? Am I happy to trust? Is it hard for me to trust? Why do I trust? Why don't I trust more? And sometimes we have to look at what's happened in the past, what we've been shaped by. But sometimes it's also about, what do I want now? So if this is who I've been showing up in the past, who do I want to be and how do I get there? Whilst it's uncovering those unconscious patterns and programs and neutralizing some of the charge around that, it's also about, well, what do you want? And how do we achieve that? And how do we get some education? So how do we actually trust? What does trust look like, sound like, and feel like for me? So how I can do it deliberately, build it for myself, in myself, and then with other people. So that's what it looks like. And we go through each ingredient thoroughly. And then there's always activities people then go away and do. With kinesiology, it's tailored individually to the person. The body will reveal in what order the person needs to do, say, eat, where, in order to build better relationships. It's quite incredible. Sometimes the body will say, this person needs to be well, so they need to eat these foods. That means they're going to sleep better and show up better in relationships. Sometimes it's not even about the relationship itself. It's the whole body needs something. So what we say is that when we create a goal, when there's an intention or a goal that's set, the body will reveal in priority order what the being needs to vibrate of the frequency of what it wants to attract. And so we may need to change something on the spiritual, the emotional, or the structural and biochemical levels before anything at times. It's quite unique to each individual, but it does have a bit of looking at oneself, looking at one's past makeup, but also what do you want and how do we get it? And let's have some specific and deliberate education to get there.
And I love that when we want to delve in a little bit what you mean when you say the body says, because this is the kinesiology in practice, right? And I imagine you're also using that body testing to determine what the actual goals are that people are working with, not just how we're getting there, but what the first point of goal is, I guess.
That's right. I don't know if people have seen kinesiology, but you can do a full body test, or if you come to a kinesiologist, we would muscle test your arm. Kinesiology was born from chiropractics and traditional Chinese medicine, but it allows us, using your muscles, we will test if they lock or unlock, and that will reveal to us where the stress is, and the body will talk to us through that muscle testing. So it is a science as well as an art form. I like to say it's an art form because you do need a practitioner who can ask great questions, or who's willing to explore things with you. So the body does talk to us in that way, and it does tell us what the priority goal is. I'll give you an example of this. It's 2 years ago now, I found the Mind Valley platform, one of the biggest online, I'll plug it every day of my life, one of the biggest online personal development platforms in the world. And you can do personal development in 20-minute chunks every morning from the beauty of your own home. And for less, I think they work out it's less than a cup of coffee a day. It's even less than that. It's like, it would be $1 a day or something like that. So I found found this platform and I was like, yes. And there's one particular author on there, Regan Hillier, who she's the manifesting queen. She's known as the manifesting queen. And I was like, right, Regan, me and you, we're going to do this. I want the money. Show me the money. Show me the money. And I was like, right, this is it. I'm nearly 50. I need the financial success to match the personal experience and whatever it is. And not that I'd been unsuccessful financially, but the expenditure of energy time had not returned the way I wanted it in money. Let's put it that way. Anyway, so I go, Regan, you and me, we're going to do this thing. And I go, just hang on a second. Before I start, I'm just going to check. I'm going to muscle test myself. And a kinesiologist who knows what they're doing, or even an individual, you can test your whole body. You can test here. That's why I'm doing that. So I'm testing here. I'm like, okay, is money the right thing? I'm just checking with the body. Is money the right thing? Body says no. I'm like, come on. This is all about money. Anyway, I test and go, what is it? Health? No. Is it about spirituality? No. Is it about relationships? Oh, yes. Okay. Is it with my family, my partner, my friends, myself? And I was like, are you crazy? This is crazy. But I trust the body. I trust the body. I've been doing this for enough years now to know that the body reveals what the priority is at the right time. And so that quest then became not about showing me the money. Ironically, it's led to that in many interesting ways, but it was about the relationship with myself and the goal that I had to set. And the body, again, the muscle testing helps reveal that. And the specific goal was that I had to become my own best friend and become someone that I liked being around, which was a very specific goal. And I was like, well, that's interesting, because we can test if the words are right, that it's at the right level, or if we need to go to a higher level or lower level or something across. So we can test up and down words, individual words. So I had to become my own best friend who I enjoyed being around. And what was fascinating is what came out of that quest was incredible. And if I had just focused on the money, I would have missed all of that other great stuff. It's quite interesting. So I think that in answer to your question, as an example there, that yes, the body does reveal the goals that we should set in what priority order, and it knows best what we need if we trust it.
I've explored, I would call it, and our listeners might refer to it as muscle testing. So I've used muscle testing for many years through different modalities of energy healing as well. And you're 100% right in that if we trust it. And I think that's very similar even to intuition. We've all got intuition if we trust it, like if we listen and if we trust it. I love that story so much. And I think about when I first met you, and when you're talking about, exploring that relationship with yourself and becoming your own best friend. Because I remember when because I saw you talk, it's only a few months ago, but I just went, wow, this lady's so cool. I want to know her. And it was just I was so drawn to you. So clearly that work that you've been doing is translating into that outer world as well, where people are drawn to you and attracted to you.
It's an awkward thing to say thank you and receive that compliment even now. And so, yes, I think it is. What is fascinating for me is that's right. And what I think I definitely recognize this, is then the type of people and the quality of conversation and the rooms I'm being invited into and the experiences I'm having are more and more in alignment with that. You see, there's something really important that I love to share with people, and so I'll say it here, is one of the things that greatest transformations in my relationship with myself was something that Reverend Michael Beckwith says. And he says this: the universe doesn't give you what you want, the universe reflects back to you who you are. And this changed everything for me, and this is why I built the Love Deliberately, Live Deliberately brand, because what I recognize is that so often as a coach, and this is one of the reasons I became a kinesiologist, so often as a coach, we go, okay, here's where I'm at. Here's where I want to be. I don't want to be here, so give me that and tell me how to get there. The challenge is if we don't like where we're at, the energy of that, the thoughts around that, the negativity or the away from motivation of that means that every cell in our body vibrates at a frequency of, I don't want this. And unfortunately, if the universe doesn't give us what we want, it reflects back to us who we are. We're going to get more of what we don't want. And between that, where we're at and what we want, there's a bit of I call it the suffering gap, but we don't know we're creating the suffering. And so for me, we got to know where we're at and where we want to be. But if we know where we're at, love, like, accept, celebrate where we're at, know the intention of where we want to be, and make sure that our vibration and frequency aligns with that. And we focus on that rather than, I don't want this, I do want that. I love this. How do I expand myself so I can allow that in and receive that for myself as well? And that's about shifting your relationship with worthiness and deserving and what you're allowed to have. Because for me, one of the biggest barriers to all of this was I have to be the good girl. And good girls don't do this and they don't do that. And I'm not allowed to have that because that's too much, you know? And so that, hopefully that answers your question. I know it's a complicated way of saying it, but there's a lot that I learned in that moment about the universe not giving us what we want, reflecting back to us who we are. So who we are has to be right now something that we love, accept, celebrate, even the ugly bits.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm just listening going, oh, yeah, this is all the stuff that I know and love and feel about the world, about self. So let's just change direction slightly, ever so slightly, just a tweak in directing us towards midlife. And I know that you work with people of all ages. You're not specially a midlife coach, but you also have experience in that. And we talked about this yesterday about how are we in midlife? That doesn't feel right. But if we talk about what you brought in earlier, and you mentioned that idea of women who give so much to everyone else, what are you seeing with your clients and what are you finding is happening for women in midlife?
Renegotiation, let's call it that. Renegotiation of almost every aspect of their life. So what I'm seeing, interestingly enough, the more of this work I'm doing, and because all of the marketing stuff and all of the business stuff that sits behind this says, find a niche, find a niche. And interestingly enough, the statistics say that women are more likely to seek support around relationships than men, that the women who are buying books and courses around relationships are in their midlife, which is quite interesting. There are younger ones, but they tend to go towards dating and ones around romantic relationships. But as you get older, you broaden that sphere. So what I'm seeing across the board is the people that come and see me, at least, are women who there's been people pleasing. That's a common theme. There is that theme of being the good girl, needing to be the good girl. And that honestly tends to come from a religious background. I will say fairly clearly that the women that had come with that, I need to be good, come to have been raised in quite religious in the 80s and 90s or earlier, those traditional homes. I'm seeing also it's really interesting. So single, married or divorced, and is sometimes widowed. So there's not a common theme in, they're either in relationships or not. But there's this niggly dissatisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for those people to pinpoint what it is that's the niggle or the dissatisfaction, because they know there's a pattern there. They'll usually be able to go, Oh, yeah, I've attracted the exact same man over and over and over again, or the same friend over and over again, or the exact same experience over and over again. They're able to articulate their experiences really well. They know they're dissatisfied. And then what tends to happen is they recognize, and generally when they meet me, is when they know that they might be part of the issue, that they're starting to realize that actually, yes, my family doesn't appreciate me. I do all this cooking. I do all this cleaning. I drive them everywhere. Don't they get it? They don't feel appreciated. They don't feel valued. They're not feeling like their work has been as satisfying as they would have liked it to be. Their careers were as satisfying at times as they would like it to be. Sometimes it's the opposite extreme, extremely great careers, but their relationships haven't been as fulfilling as they want it to be. There's this dissatisfaction, and then when they get on the, actually, is this about me? Is everywhere I'm going, maybe something I'm doing is contributing to this? And so that's when we start the real adventure, when people can go, I think it's me. But it requires so much courage to say that, and a safe place to say it in. Because if everyone's just, what did you say? MSing it, making
Yes,
stuff up.
yes.
If they're just making stuff up, it looks like everyone's got it handled. Then if I say, I think I'm the problem, then I no longer have it handled. And the world I know and the identity that I have, like, what is that? So it requires a safe place. It requires courage. And not everyone's ready to be that courageous. So when they show up, I know the body, like, they will stay and they'll work on it, or some people, it will become too much, but it does require courage.
Absolutely, it does. And I know that because we get what we focus on, like we attract who we're ready to work with. And for you, I know you're working with people who have basically, they've said, yeah, I'm ready and I might be a bit afraid. And then you create that safe space to give them the courage to explore what they need to in order to take that next step. So it's such a beautiful space that you hold for people, to be able to explore these, relationship and self and awareness in a safe way. So it's beautiful, beautiful work. You were saying something really powerful a little earlier, and I'm kind of laughing, saying, yeah, when we look at everyone around me is doing this, and I'm going, but the common factor is you, which we start to go, oh, hang on, mirror, mirror on the wall. But you were saying that people come looking for better relationships with others, and they walk away understanding themselves better. So I'd love you just to explain a bit more about that and how that kind of works.
I want to say, first of all, one of the remarkable things that happens is when people get together. So when I've seen in workshops and group sessions that I've held over the years, when people hear the stories of others and they don't feel that they're alone in this not knowing how to be better, then something remarkable happens and shifts. And so I really like when you get to share stories and people talk. And that is one of the transformative things that, like, you'll see that across everything that I do, is I share a lot of stories. And so then what happens is people go, oh, that's me. Oh, it's not just me. Hang on a second, let me look at that. And so what tends to happen, I can't explain all the magic of it, but what tends to happen is they come looking for the information, the advice, or tell me what to do. And it's like, well, as you know, most
Yes.
coaches and kinesiologists would know, is I don't have all your answers. I've got some good quality information, but what you do with that will be what will create the transformation. So I share information, I share a lot of stories, and then people go, okay, that sounds like me. Let me look at where that fits in me or doesn't fit in me. And there's also some specific skills then they go and test out.
Mm.
And that's how they learn about themselves better. And I really believe essentially the first level of work that I did and I do with people is delving deep into how you behave, the words you say, the thoughts you have, the way that you communicate. It's the tiny little pieces. It's not the whole thing. So I find people will get
Mm-hmm.
realizations out of small things. Like, I'll give you an example, and bless my sister if she's listening. She doesn't have social media, but she does go onto YouTube sometimes. But so the example would be, recently she said to me, even you found someone to marry. This was words that she said to me. And I was like, even I found someone to marry. Okay. Ouch. Like, ouch. An old me would have gotten upset, said nothing, keep the peace, So old patterns did show up the first time she said it, but she said it more than once. And eventually I said, actually, I don't like that. I don't like that. What your words imply is that there's something about me that shouldn't have found a husband, or that you should have and I shouldn't have. And my sister's beautiful. She never intended to hurt, but she does have a lawyer's brain. So she immediately went, well, I didn't say that. You made it mean that. And I go, no, your words aren't kind. Your words aren't kind. She came back to me and said, Alfina, I heard it. I heard what I said, and I get it, and I'm sorry for that. I don't want you to feel that I think badly of you. And I'm like, okay. So these are small moments. I know I'm using an example from my own life, but I think anyone who has sisters or siblings, we say things and we don't know we're hurting people, or we don't know that what we say lands, and it can land big time. Look, my sister, full disclosure, I didn't marry till I was 37. I did take my time to find the right person, get over myself enough to find the right person. And I was the butt of the family joke. You know that big fat Greek wedding? Like, you're so old. I had the Italian version of that. And so
Yeah.
my sister's jokes kind of things were not uncommon in the family. Those comments were not uncommon. And I'm like, well, that's not who I am now. So it's even in those little moments, and clients will bring those stories in, like I've just shared that story. And from that, we'll go, okay, well, what's important to you in this? Well, is it important? It was important for me to be spoken to well, that people's words matter to me, and the way they speak to me or speak to me into the world, I am going to pull them up if I disagree, or if there is a moment, like for my sister, she is appreciative that I don't just let her say whatever she wants to say as well. To me, she likes to grow and learn herself. So it's moments like that. That's the best example I think I've got of how people would take a situation, a communication or an experience, bring it back into the coaching and have a conversation about it, do some muscle testing and figure out what is it that our experience are telling us and what we value. And that's how we truly get to know ourselves better.
I couldn't agree more, and that's such a powerful example of words, because I'm so big on the language and the words that we use, and I completely stuff it up myself sometimes. That awareness doesn't mean that you don't do dumb things. I've got to say that, and I know even with my own partner, sometimes I'll say something to him, and then I'll do that. I'll go, oh, ouch, and I realize later, even though I'm kind of having a joke or saying something, there's some undertones there, and I feel it within myself, and I feel yuck. That was yuck, and I don't want to be the person that's speaking to him like that. And so sometimes I'll pull myself up and apologize, and other times I'll just go, oh, we're just going to let that one slide by. He's really great. He's got, very thick skin, and he understands me really well. So it doesn't build up or become a problem. But I know what you're talking about, and in that we have to be thoughtful about our language towards others and towards ourselves, and then what we do with that, and how we notice it or don't notice it in relationship.
Yeah, I'll give you another example in this, with this. More recently, I started to look at the idea that I wrote a whole book called Love Deliberately, but never talk about love ever in the book. And started thinking about the irony in that and talking to people about what does love mean to you? So what does it actually mean to people? And like there's some beautiful definitions out in the world and that kind of thing, but I really think it's different for everyone. And one particular client, she said, it's an acronym. I go, oh yeah, share more. And she goes, lots of violent events. And I was shocked. And what was interesting, and here's my real secret, I just ask really good questions like you do on this podcast. You ask really good questions and you go, tell me more about that. Why would that be your definition of love? And she said, because that's what it looks like. When I was a kid, there were a lot of violent things that happened and a lot of angry people. And what's interesting is then you could see the penny start to drop, and you could see why she was constantly defensive in relationship and why she would always be arguing or defensive and defending her point, even when it didn't need to be there. And also why she was avoiding being in relationship as well, because of the fear that if that's what love looks like, I don't want to be that anymore, but I don't know how to shift or change that relationship with love. My goodness, the shift I saw in that person when they decided to create a new definition of love for themselves. Difficult to unwind. It takes time, just so we know that, if this woman was close to her 60s, if you've for many years believed that love looks like that, then we have to shift that. But it is asking the right questions at the right time. Again, there's got to be a willingness from the individuals to be asked those questions. But I find that by the time people come and work with a coach or a kinesiologist, they're ready to answer the hard questions.
For sure. And I actually love the title of your book, Love Deliberately. For me, I just go, it speaks straight to the heart space. And when we think about what you were talking about before, is that it takes courage to do this work. If we look at, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, but the scale of, I think it's David Hawkins' power versus force. And we look at the scale of the vibration of different sort of emotions, and courage is actually fairly low. And it's because it takes a lot of effort, whereas love is a really high vibrational state. And so when we start thinking about that, even in this, they have the courage to come to you, but they find a place of love with you. And so there's this uplift, a natural uplift just in their emotional being, their emotional state, in their vibrational state, the way they're walking in the world. So I love that you've called it Love Deliberately. So let's talk about the book for a moment, because basically you've distilled like 25 years of work into a book. So first of all, what made you want to simplify everything into a book?
I wanted to write a book that wasn't just about romantic relationships. I looked out there and there's books on dating, there's books on how to trust, there's books on how to love languages, there's the books on how to forgive. They mostly are geared, up until more recently, this has become more of a thing in the last 5 to 10 years. But there are other books about relationships, that are about friendship. I know Simon Sinek right now is writing a book on friendship as well. And what struck me was that all of these books talk about romantic relationships, like that's the be all and the end all. And yes, they are the center of a family, though you require a romantic relationship in order to create a family. But it's not the only relationship. And the challenges I have seen over the years with people in romantic relationships, because I have worked with couples, worked with singles, worked with all kinds of people, that they're common across all of the relationships. When I don't trust in my romantic relationship, there's guaranteed that it'll be showing up somewhere else. The way I'm communicating with my partner under pressure, is that showing up in my family dynamic? Did it show up in my family dynamic? And so I wanted to create something that was like the 101 or the how-to, let's say, but for the person who is even in the romantic relationship, but the other person doesn't want to go to therapy, or the other person doesn't seem to want to change, but I want something fresher. I want something happy. And I see a lot of that in middle-aged, midlife women, where their partners are pigs in poop. They've got the house, the car, they go fishing. They're like, yeah, I'm happy. And the ones are like, I'm not, like, I love you, but I want more than this. You know, I see that a lot, actually. I was thinking about that before. I see that a lot. And so I wanted to create something that, regardless of who was in the relationship, someone could get support in it. And the person willing to do the work could get some support and see a shift and see results. That it didn't need the rest of the world to change to make a difference. And what's remarkable is I did have women in mind, but one of the first testimonials that I've gotten is a man who showed up to one of my colleagues and said, I want to sort myself out because I want to find a partner. And he goes, where do I start? And she called me up. She goes, I've got this guy, blah, blah, blah. And I said, here, just give him the book to start off with. He read it cover to cover, put notes in it, loved it, post-it noted it all. They worked together over a couple of months on each ingredient. He walked away. And his testimonial was, you started working with me because I wanted to find a relationship. It's a couple of months down the track. I'm not in relationship. He said, but boy, do I like who I am and how my life looks now so much more. And from that place, imagine him attracting that relationship, right? So much more whole. And so I feel like that was the reason I wrote the book. That's what I wanted for people. But here's a bit of an irony. I intuitively knew that's what I wanted to create, but had no idea to what extent it would do that work. And what I do want to share as well, I was at a conference in Tallinn, Estonia. There was a billionaire on stage talking about how to be successful in business. And he said, you find a problem in the world and you fix it. You find a solution, and that's how you set up a successful business. And I was like, well, but what do I know? I don't know. Like, you're out there doing this and that and saving this thing and doing that thing and building rockets. And I don't know what I'm doing. And I said, but what if, and then I was like, but what problem in the world could I fix? I don't know. And this is lofty, but I was like, Miss Congeniality, it's world peace, I would like to be not world peace, everyone's, but greater peace to the individual. And the reason that I wrote it is my deepest belief is that everything in our life is about relationships. Everything. We have one with God, Allah, Buddha, with our family, friends, business partners. We have a relationship with ourselves, our money. We have a relationship with our fingers and toes. We have a relationship with everyone that we come in contact with. It is the key, and my saying is this, that when we get good at relationships, we get a good life. But if we don't know how to do it deliberately, then we're going to get mixed results. Yes. And so this is my lofty attempt at creating greater peace, and the vehicle is relationships.
Yes, 100%. And for people who are listening who don't know your book yet, I've got my copy here. It's very, very good. Everyone should go and buy one. I love the way you distill the chapters. You mentioned earlier, I'm shameless in doing a plug. Absolutely. when I believe in it, let me be clear about that. But we talked a little bit earlier about, I guess, the topics, and they're all chapters of their own, like the compassion and boundaries and values and beliefs and trust and forgiveness and all those things. What I find in your book is it's not a book that I sit down and read. It's a book that I live, and that there's actions in there. There's learnings. There's go and be playful and do this in your life. Don't just sit and read it in a corner. And that guy that you're talking about, no doubt he read it, but he also did the exercises in your book, and that's what I love. You make yourself accessible, because the reality is you can't work with everyone in the world, but everyone in the world can now work with you through the book. So if we have a look at that, is there one little exercise or lens from the book that you would recommend where listeners could start using some of what you teach straight away?
Good question. So you're right. The book does have it isn't just a passive thing. It's not for the faint of heart. You're absolutely right about that. So one thing that I think people could start with, and it's interesting because it's the last chapter in the book, but it's the one thing that makes the biggest difference, is listen and speak with curiosity. So
Mhm.
we might look at people's behavior and go, what is that? I'm offended. Or what is that person doing? That's wrong. And we judge. Bad, wrong, and we go,
Yep.
something's up there. If we have curiosity, if we seek to understand, it's one of Stephen Covey's little eggs as well, but I talk about it in Speak and Listen with Curiosity, is if we go, I wonder what's going on there. I wonder why I just said that. And if we get curious, then something else can exist in the space, rather than judgment, rather than a lack of compassion, rather than defensiveness, rather than, just reacting. We can take a minute. If we just remember to be curious, then things can shift. So that's what that practice. Maybe start with the back of the book and then read forward. But it is written as a choose your own adventure. So the idea is that you can read it the first time, work on your relationship with your partner, then go back and do it again and focus on the relationship with your friends. And you can muscle test. You could even learn how to muscle test in chapter 1 and then go, which chapter should I read first? I have put them in that order because there
Yep.
is a bit of a building, but yeah, go to the Listen and Speak with Curiosity chapter.
Yeah, I love that, because that's such a it's like it is a practical thing that you can do straight away. And I love that you say speak and listen with curiosity, because we need to listen to others with curiosity, but when we can also do that for ourselves, like when I gave that example before, that sometimes I'll say something and I'll go, what was that? Like, that was just mean. Hang on a sec. But instead of going into, say, a shame spiral about it and then, hiding in the corner and go, I can't believe I did that. Uh, when we can listen with curiosity and go, oh, where did that come from? And what was actually behind that? What was I feeling? What's happening for me in that moment? Then we can move through it and not just, stuff it deep down with everything else.
That's right. And I think even more than that, when we get curious, we can start to go, ooh, what have I not done? What brings me joy and I don't know brings me joy? Ooh, what type of people would I like to do
Mm.
business with? Or, I'd really like to shift my wardrobe or my style. Like, what could look good on me? Curiosity is so powerful.
Oh, I do. I agree. And I'll also, the other thing I would bring in, particularly when we're looking, with a curious lens towards other people, is some of that work around not making assumptions. The work of the 4 agreements of Don Miguel Ruiz, of just, yeah, don't make assumptions, because we often, when we say, oh, what's going on there, we'll assume that they're looking at the world through our lens and our map. And it's like, no, they've got their own lens and something's going on for them. But don't assume you know what it is. Be curious about it.
That's right.
So As we're starting to sort of draw towards a close here, I feel like I think I say this every time. I feel like I could speak to you for hours. I'm like, no, we have to bring it to a close. What are you most passionate about people understanding when it comes to relationships?
It's the most important work you are here to do. They say that death and taxes are inevitable, but relationships are the one thing you have the moment you're conceived. There's a relationship right there. And so let's not
Mm,
leave it to chance, experiments, or environments that we were raised in. Let's do it deliberately.
yeah, I love that. And I cannot skip over because I have to ask you because I'm so intrigued about this award that you received in the US. Can you share a little bit about what the award was and that part of the trip that was, apparently a little uncomfortable to go over for?
A little uncomfortable. Americans are very good at celebrating success, can I tell you? Australians have a very tall poppy syndrome going on. So it might be there, that award. International Impact Book Award. So it's for indie publishers and hybrid published books. And it recognizes people like myself who, we don't have the million followers. We don't have that um, set up in our businesses. We're working with to get our messages out there, and so the awards are designed to support authors in that situation. And so there were 150 different categories, that those fiction and non-fiction, but they were all self-published or hybrid publishers, hybrid published books that were out
Mm.
there. The owner of the CEO of that
Mhm.
organization is wanting to lift self-publishing wants it to become the Oscars of that kind of industry. So she's on a real mission, which is really powerful to help people whose
Yep.
message is powerful but may not otherwise be seen because they don't have the PR power, or they don't have the networking, and so she creates those networks. So it was a really interesting event. They have a conference attached to it where you learn how to turn your book into a business, but then you met these extraordinary people with extraordinary lives and extraordinary stories who wrote books about amazing transformation. Their fiction stories were amazing as well. So that was really cool. I'm not someone who's been into glitz and glamour. I have hid off social media up until a month
Mhm.
or two ago. I was like, okay, I know what I've created is really powerful, but if I don't tell people about it, no one's going to know. So I have to be the face of it. And of course, make no bones about this. I'm not in the shape that I would love to be. I have previously, I was this size when I was young. I lost weight through stress and COVID and overwhelm, put it all back on, and I'm on a journey in that. And again, and have lost a heap in the last year of weight. But that old pattern of like, who am I? Nobody, like, I don't look right. I don't look the part. And it's like, what does an author look like? Like, they look like you, they look like me, they look like everybody. And so for me, getting on a red
Mm.
carpet, having a photograph taken, it was a lot. And what's interesting, I'll quickly share, is that part of the whole thing is you get professional photos and that, and there's this professional photography, you walk on the red carpet, you got to do this with your book. And they take your camera, your phone, so you can get photos, because the professional ones take weeks to come out. So, so you can do all your social media flapping. And
Yep.
it was a man that took my phone and took a photo of me. And it's bad. It's like, people look at it and go, but that's you. It's like, but it's so not a flattering photo. And this is like, I walk into this event, I'm looking glam and glitz, I have beautiful hair, I've done makeup beautifully. And I was like, yes, I've got this. And I look at this photo, I don't got this. I want to go home. No, I didn't come all the way to America for rubbish photos. And I got like as much of this work as I've done. I got into my head, I was like, no, I'm going home. No, not doing this. I'm done, because this photo is hideous. And I said, Alfina, it's okay. It's okay. It's not about how you look. book, this message is more important. You're on a mission. You've got a point. Relationships are important. Stop it. And had of talking to myself. Then I found this beautiful woman, curly hair, dark skin like mine, and to olive skin like mine. She's just so in her body and like glamorous and beautiful. And I went up to her and I said, "Would you be able to help me?" She goes, "Yes, how can I help you?" She was one of the people there. And I said, "Look, this is the photo that I'm working with." And I said, "I know you're going to say it looks beautiful, but please don't say that. Like, can you see what I'm seeing?" She goes, "Yes." And I said, "Can you help me? I've got a bit of time. We've got the background and everything. Could you just help me get shots that I'll be able to use and feel proud of?" And she did, and they are amazing, even better than the professional ones, I will say. Thank you, Alessandra, if you ever listen to this. And from then, I was like, I'm back. I'm back in my body. I'm back on my mission. I'm not being held up by my own stuff. And so that's why it was a remarkable trip for me, because I really had to step outside my comfort zone. And I lived a dream out. I went to see the Grand Canyon as well as part of that, because it was in Phoenix.
Oh, I've got to say, I think every person listening, not even just every woman, but every person listening can relate to that feeling of looking at a photo and going, nah, delete. And I love what I hear is that you found someone who was at a vibration that matched what you wanted and who you are. It's like someone took a photo and they didn't match that, and it's a vibrational thing. I used to watch my daughter Morgan, and she just used to take the most incredible photos as a little kid. And I go, it's something in the way that she sees the world. And so I love that you found someone with that matching vibration who could say, "Oh yeah, I see in you, what you wanted to be seen," and that you and that's a big courage piece, right? To go up to someone you don't know and ask them and kind of say, "Oh, this is how I'm feeling about this. Can you help?" And it's so perfect. It's such a perfect little, like the whole thing just wrapped up. I love it. Little story wrapped up with a bow. It's perfect. All right. So what I love to do at the end of all of my episodes is just ask what I call them popcorn questions. And I will say they're not the smallest questions, but I do believe that when we think about it and give the answer sort of in the moment that we, that they're authentic. So what brings you most alive right now?
Learning. Learning brings me alive. I love learning new things, being curious about the world and curious about what else can I do to help people and help myself.
Love that. What would your bravest self say to you about this chapter of your life?
It's interesting because I went and saw Chris Williamson, the podcasters in Brisbane last night. And he asked that similar question of like, if your life was a movie and the people watching it was screaming at you, what would they be like to do something? What would it be? To keep doing the hard things that are uncomfortable, because on the other side of them, there's great joy.
Do you know that exact saying came up in one of my earlier podcasts about that? If your life was a movie and people were watching you, that exact thing came up it was with Sue Moore, the episode there with her. And I'm like, wow, hang on. Maybe I need to hear this when I'm hearing it again. So what's something small but powerful that helps you feel more like yourself?
Cliche would be meditation. That would be the obvious answer. But I will say it is the everyday normal thing, like sitting down to have a meal with my husband. So we sit at a table with forks and knives at the table and we have a meal. Or the everyday sit with like my family's big. And that makes me feel more like myself now that I own who I am. Like before I'd be uncomfortable in that, but now I love it. Like we'll play cards or we'll do stuff as a family, and that makes me feel really myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And the final question, if you could gift every midlife one one reminder, what would it be?
It's the thing that's popping into my head is that everywhere you go, there you are. And so let's make sure, and don't do it alone, let's make sure that everywhere you go, the you that you are is actually who you want to be and what you want to be experiencing, what you want to be feeling.
Mm. Wow, I'm taking that away into my day, well, my day, my week, all the rest of it. Alfina, it has just been such a pleasure to get to spend, an hour with you and hear more of your story and about the book. I will, for everyone listening, I will have the book, the links in the show notes. We'll have Alfina's socials so that you can start watching her and hearing more about her message, because I think it's such a powerful message and for everyone, not just women in midlife, but definitely it's an intriguing message too when you start to delve in. So thank you so much for your time today and for being a part of Midlife Unfiltered.
Thank you for the opportunity, and many more opportunities for us to meet and connect and work together. I'd love that.
Absolutely. Thanks for tuning in to Midlife Unfiltered. I hope today sparked something meaningful and reminded you of what's possible in this season of life. If this episode lifted you up, share it with someone who could use the reminder. Subscribing will make sure that you're notified when a new episode is released, and leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify also helps more people discover our little corner of midlife truth-telling. You can always reach out through Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. I love hearing from women who are walking this path with me. Interested in working with me? You'll find everything you need at margaretcruise.com. And remember, midlife isn't an ending. It's your invitation to feel more alive than ever. See you next week. And now the legal stuff. The content in this podcast is provided for general information and inspiration only. It does not constitute medical, legal, or psychological advice, nor is it a substitute for independent professional care. Margaret Cruise is not a registered health professional. You are responsible for your own choices and outcomes and should always seek advice from an appropriately qualified professional.